designed to mitigate for COVID. Therefore, can I ask all present to work to the protocols agreed at Council on 29th of April this year in the interest of both member and officers' safety. We are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. One extra thing I'm going to add in is because we are streaming, it's very important that we only have one other microphone on at a time. Try and be very vigilant about switching off while you wait for the answer to your question or whatever. During each item, please put your hand up or raise your paddle to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. When invited to speak, please remove your mask, put on your visor, turn on your microphone and speak clearly. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers. Keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible and ensure your microphones remain off when not speaking. Just an extra note to public speakers, I'm afraid because of the numbers we're allowed in the chamber, I am going to have to ask public speakers to leave when they've finished the item that they're here for. Right, can I draw your attention to the notices on the agenda papers regarding different levels in the chamber? Advise that the fire exit and indeed the normal exit, when we get to that, is the one behind the top table. Right, item 2 is apologies for absence. May I have those, please?
Good evening, Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you. Right, next item is declarations. No, sorry, I apologise. Item 3 is the minutes of the last meeting. Here we go, just looking. Right, I'm going to take these minutes as read. These are the ones from the 16th of June. Does anyone have any matters of accuracy to raise? Okay, can I agree these by assent? If anyone disagrees, please let me know.
Agreed.
Otherwise agreed, thank you very much. Right, now it's declarations of interest. I do have to read this bit, sorry. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members, and members are reminded they're also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware should the need arise during the meeting. Right, Councillor Birmingham.
Thank you, Chair. Non-pecuniary as a member of Essex County Council who are consultees. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Chairman. Also non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so we move on to...
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, non-pecuniary interest relating to planning application 2100104, as I'm an acquaintance of the architect.
Okay, thank you. Sorry I missed you, I wasn't, I didn't notice the hand. Getting there, getting there. Right, agenda item number 5. This is 21/00104, land west of Fambridge Road, North
Carry on, Chairman.
Okay.
Technical issue.
Okay. Could we have the report, please? Are you winning, Councillor Dunn?
Just carry on without me, everybody else does.
Okay. Oh, sorry,
I do
Councillor.
apologise, I've read out the wrong number from my notes.
Ah,
My non-pecuniary interest is 21000415.
so not this one, and it's not pecuniary. That's fine, thank you. Right, sorry, thank you.
Okay. Hello everyone. I'm going to present this application. Can you all hear me okay?
Thank you.
Land West of Fambridge Road. 26 out for up to 75 dwellings and up to 1,000 square metres of flexible commercial and community space. Reserve matters was granted under 19.00252 res for 75 dwellings and is currently under construction. The application site relates to the parcel of the large site where the 1,000 square metres of flexible commercial and community space was granted consent. This is the site plan showing the site. The wider site of the 75 dwellings can be seen to the northwest and west, and you can see the access also joining Fambridge Road. This is a more detailed site plan showing again outlined in red the lower site, again with the 75 dwellings being shown in the remaining area in blue and an area of open space to the front. This is the block plan for the site. You can see a mixture of housing types, the access road, and there is a road running along the western boundary and southern boundary also. And it would be facing public open space. This shows the housing mix plan. A little bit difficult for me to see, but you can all see marked out in red is 4-bed dwelling, 2-bed dwelling and 1-bed dwellings, so it offers a housing mix. This is the parking plan. The proposal would comply with the adopted parking standards for the district. At the bottom you can see visitor parking marked out in purple. In red are garages, in yellow is other parking, and in yellow also parking that's located close to relevant dwellings. Landscaping has been indicated, showing a mixture of hard and soft landscaping as would be expected with this type of development, along with a more concreted road surrounding the southern, northern and western boundaries. So a little bit more detail in terms of the soft landscaping. You can see that the overall appearance would be relatively verdant, in particular along the western boundary. Again, this is a master plan which gives an indication of the overall landscaping scheme, as it were. You see what look like 2 lakes and open space to the east of the wider site, and the scheme that's currently being built up to the northwest and northwest. Now we are moving on to looking at the detailed elevations of the different housing types that are to be provided by the scheme. This being the 4-bed market housing, and this shows the floor plans. Again, another sign of 4-bed market housing. And the floor plans, and another 4-bed market dwelling, associated floor plans. These are 2-bed market dwellings shown here, what looks like cream render, and as you can see, and also the floor plans are also shown here. This is a 2-bed market dwelling slightly narrower than some of the others that have been shown. We have accommodation above, facilities on ground floor. And a similar arrangement with this house also. The important thing to point out this one is this is a 2-bed affordable dwelling. Affordable housing is being proposed with the scheme. And some more affordable housing also. And another 2-bed affordable unit. And these are some of the street scenes looking into the proposed site from east and west. As you can see, there is reasonable spacing between the houses, and some of the soft landscaping proposed is also indicated. These are details of cycle storage, which will be included with the houses. Very standard design. And some of the garages. Again, like typical residential design. These are some of the site photos. You can see the wider area is relatively flat. And you can see some of the houses that have been built, which are similar in appearance to what's being proposed. And this scheme, in our view, would integrate well with that wider scheme. Another view of the wider site as seen from Fambridge Road. So, in summary, the principle of 1,000 square metres of commercial and community space has been previously approved, but it's important to point out that the applicants have marketed this site for these uses and have not been successful in securing the commercial and community uses. This was done over a 3-year period. We consider that the marketing exercise they did was comprehensive and of significant duration and would allow for any short-term fluctuation. It's also noted that policy 1 of the development plan did not direct any form of commercial development to North Fambridge, and or generally through windfall developments, and therefore there was no evidence at the time the planting plan commission that there was actually need for this space. So the application would result in the loss of potential, and I emphasise potential, commercial community use, but there would be a gain of 12 residential units, 5 of which would be affordable. The application is considered to be within a reasonably sustainable location, in part due to proximity to the railway station in North Fambridge. And the development of 12 residential units would also assist in making up the deficit in our housing land supply. It's therefore considered that there are no objections to the principle of development. The design approach is considered to be appropriate to the site and would result in a seamless addition to the wider development with additional soft landscaping proposed. The development provides adequate off-road parking, meets amenity space standards, and would not result in any materially harmful impacts on neighbours' residential amenity. Furthermore, previous infrastructure constraints in relation to the site and foul drainage have been addressed through the installation of a new rising main to South Wickham Farrers, and this development will connect into this network, with condition 6 relating to this. Overall, the proposed development is considered to outweigh any harm and would represent sustainable development. As such, subject to the approval of an S106 agreement to secure affordable housing and grants payment, along with the conditions recommended, I recommend this application for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we have a public speaker on this one. That is the agent, Chris Webber. Sorry?
Just going to get it.
Ah, right, we're just going to get it. That's it, if you can find yourself a seat, please, Mr. Webber. Can we get the clock up? Who's in charge of the clock? Can we get the clock up?
Where is the clock? Okay, just bear with me.
Okay. Right, I'll just go through the rules, Mr. Webber. Please don't start yet, even if you know the rules. You get 2 minutes precisely from when, here we go, we have a clock. 2 minutes precisely from when you start to speak, and I have to warn you, I always stop you, even if you're mid-sentence. Sorry about that, but it has to be fair for everyone. Okay, when you're comfortable, please use your microphone, and off you go.
Right, take off the mark.
Of course. Well, maybe not of course, but please do, yes.
Good evening, members, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm Chris Webber, planner for David Wilson Homes and the applicant for this proposal. The application proposes 12 new residential homes on land that was previously allocated for 1,000 square metres of commercial community use under the outline consent from March 2016. A marketing strategy was agreed with the District Council, following which the commercial community land has been continually marketed since 2017, both online and through print, to try and find a potential buyer. This marketing strategy has been comprehensive and for a significant and extended duration of time, with no viable interest expressed. It is therefore the view of both officers and Savills, our marketing agents, that given the small scale of North Fambridge and the lack of passing trade, there is not sufficient demand for commercial or community uses in the village, and no reasonable prospect that any such occupier would be able to sustain a viable concern. Therefore, to make the most effective use of the land, an alternative use should be found. The 12 homes proposed would provide this alternative, more deliverable land use. The homes will assist Mope Lane in meeting the shortfall in its 5-year housing land supply, and furthermore, the proposal is fully SHMARC compliant, with 60% of homes being 1 and 2 beds, alongside a policy compliant 40% affordable housing. Historically, the provision and disposal of foul drainage on the site has been an issue of concern, and I'm pleased to confirm that the foul pumping station and rising main connection to South Wickham Bishops waste treatment works has been completed prior to the first occupation of the wider site. Anglian Water Services have also confirmed that South Wickham Bishops has capacity to accept flows from these 12 additional homes, meaning foul drainage has been fully assessed and deemed acceptable. In addition, to assist with surface water flows, David Wilson Homes have carried out extensive clearance of third-party water courses, which have been poorly maintained or blocked. In conclusion, there is no demand for the previously approved commercial/community use on the site, nor is there likely to be in the future, given the current retail and commercial markets. Conversely, these additional homes will provide a significant planning benefit and have been designed to fit seamlessly into the wider development.
Thank you. Perfect timing, well done. Right, members, before we actually go into the debate, does anyone have any just questions of fact or dimension or anything of that nature that might help everybody out before we actually enter a debate? Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Jen. I'd like to thank the officers for the report. And can I just ask, have the developers had a conversation with you about reducing the size of the commercial space? Because it's actually 10,000 square foot. It's actually a lot for the size of village. So I just wanted to be clear whether you'd had discussions about maybe reducing it down to 2,000 square foot, for example, separated into maybe 5 units of 600 square foot that could be used for, I don't know what a convenience store would be, maybe 800, 1,000 square foot. I just wanted to know whether those sorts of discussions had taken place. Thank you.
Mr. Lee.
The Chairman, yeah, I'll pick this up with Mr. Taylor's on the case officer. It's my understanding that there has been some discussions earlier on about the marketing policies and all things like that. There have been discussions about restricting reducing the scale of the commercials, as in a true part of some housing and some commercial development. This report deals with the matter about commercial issues. Obviously, it's a balancing exercise. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor
Thank you,
White.
Madam Chairman. Mine follows on from my fellow ward member. In the market appraiser report, obviously we've had COVID since early 2019, so it hasn't really been that long a report, because since COVID, nobody wants any business space. hopefully will return to usual. The other thing is, it seems to be that there's no public consultation has been undertaken about alternative community uses, like a village shop or any community area. That's my first one. So are they missing this? Were some residents not written to, or were just some of them unaware? I don't think the parish council was consulted by the tender email. And when we talk about the planning gains against the adverse, the NPPF is all about thriving communities, but this, for me, encourages another dormitory town, because there isn't even a shop, there's nothing in North Fambridge. So was discussion put into this about the viability of the village during these discussions, because that appears to be, it's all about allowing villages to grow and thrive. So was this discussed as well? And why was no weight attached to it, if it was?
Who wants to speak?
Mr.
Mr. Lee.
Chairman, as Officer Paul explained, it's a very balanced decision, the recommendation in this instance. One of the key aspects is that there was a lack of evidenced need of any type of commercial enterprise as part of the original application. So it's very significant to the strategic sites or the allocated sites. There is a difference in there. As the Officer's report acknowledges, you know, it's out. They've got outline stage. There isn't any reserved matters that could bring into question the likelihood of a site being brought forward. As you know, I think Councillor White's imposed, you know, does somebody want to bring forward that whole site or not? You know, as a commercial enterprise, and actually would they be more, and as Councillor Clement said about more favourable as smaller, bite-sized piecemeal commercial enterprises. There is a valid argument to that point. It's a balancing exercise. Officers consider on balance that, taking into account the fact there wasn't any evidence for need when this was submitted, that that it is an application we should recommend. But as I said, this is very much a planning judgment application, and to some extent these things have been taken into account. That's why I believe it is just a balancing exercise. And as members always know, it's within your gift to come to a different decision to us, but you know, the officers would probably explain all the issues separately. Thank you.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Benjamin. Yeah, were the villagers and everybody else consulted with the fact that you know, this was going to happen? It was just going to be removed in its entirety. Because I know a lot of people have said to me they wanted a shop or something. They said we didn't know. They just put in the application to build on it. They never asked us what we wanted, and that's why I'm curious.
Thank you. Mr. Lee.
To Chair, not to my knowledge, that wouldn't necessarily be a requirement for them to do that. Obviously, the bespoke. It goes back to the point about how you deal with the outline application. Actually, it comes back to the marketing process and the balancing exercise rather than some of the questions that the officers report highlights where it may be different in different circumstances. We would want a different approach, but you know, as I said, it's a balanced decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think Councillor Stevens next. Did I see you indicate?
No, my questions are covered, thank you.
Oh, right, thank you. Okay, Councillor Keys then, I believe, next.
Good evening. Part of my question was covered by Councillor White. It's got in here, keep getting drummed into me, it's got to be sustainability. Right, 7.41. I found a spelling mistake and all, I've only just noticed that, and that's nothing. It's not about that. It is acknowledged in the report that the site is within a reasonably sustainable location with limited facilities and services in the village. However, the rain station, which was not supposed to be a train station, offers good public transport links. Now, reasonably sustainable location, I don't know, which has already come up, I don't know of a shop. What would reasonably sustainable, because I thought it had to be a shop or a bus route, which it says here only runs fortnightly to Chelmsford on. Have we changed the sustainability bit now? So,
Mr. Taylor, or is that
question,
another?
somebody, I keep getting drummed into us, we do it, it's got to be sustainability.
Okay.
Yes, so in terms of the sustainability of the site, much of the sustainability is drawn from its connectivity to the railway network. There are limited facilities within the village, but...
So you jump on a train to get a pint of milk?
Sorry, through me please.
Sorry, Chairman.
Go ahead.
Chair, so they were expecting people to jump on a train to go and get a pint of milk to Wickford, I suppose would be the nearest one, is that it? Yeah.
Chairman, got to remember that this is part of a larger site that has been found to be sustainable, acceptable for housing. That is a material consideration that has been accepted by the inspector. So it's not really our place to revisit that as a principle. That has been accepted already, and that's one of the major issues. And you might consider that some of the wording is less specific or maybe woollier than it would be in other reports said, but at the end of the day there's planning history in favour of this, and that's a material consideration in termination of this application. Okay.
Yes, I've got a couple of people to come to, but it does strike me, Mr. Lee, there's a bit of chicken and egg here in that when the larger site was granted, there was going to be some commercial and community use, that made it sustainable, and now there isn't, but we can't go back. Is that anything like a reasonable assessment? If it's no, it's
to some
no.
extent that is, yeah, I can't disagree with that. It's all part of why this is a very balanced decision.
Okay, thanks. Right, in order I actually have Councillor White who wants to come back and then Councillor Fleming.
I'll let the other members go first.
Okay, sorry, I nearly forgot Councillor Durham, how could I possibly? May I let him go first, please, Councillor Fleming, as you've had a go?
Yeah.
Councillor Durham.
I take it we're debating this now, are we?
Well, yeah, I think we are. We never really did have any questions.
No, well,
so-
thank you very much indeed.
Of the
Thank
nature
you.
of the
I'll
statement.
go full into it. I take on board what my fellow members have said, in that it's a shame that there are not going to be any facilities. But on the other side of the coin, I mean, I've got at least 2 large parishes that had shops that weren't viable, changed hands numerous times, and then closed because they just simply were not viable, and there was no other shop. They were, in both cases, the only shops in the village. One is a village at least as large as North Fambridge. And, you know, if you ask the residents, would you like a shop? Well, of course, they're going to say, yes, of course we want a shop. But somebody's got to run it and run a viable business, and village shops are notoriously unprofitable. And there's nothing worse than building a shop and having it empty. So, you know, yes, it would be nice to have a shop, but I have grave doubts over whether it would be viable when so many people drive and there are car parks and there are supermarkets, you know, within driving distance, because the village shops just can't compete on price at the end of the day. It's regrettable, but those, I'm afraid, are the facts of life. So, but the question I wanted to ask, and it's one that I'm now going to be asking at every single meeting, is will each property have an electric vehicle charging point? If not, why not? If not, they should. And my view is that every single new dwelling built in this district should have one from this point forward. So every time we get an application for a domestic dwelling, I will be asking for conditions requiring an electric vehicle charging point, because we are not far away, Chairman, from the end of internal combustion car production. So although not many people have them now, but it's rapidly increasing, and domestic charging facilities are going to be essential. So
Okay.
if it's possible to put that condition in, I would like to see it. Thank
Okay, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Lee, anybody? Please go ahead.
So I believe that condition 11 addresses that issue. It states, furthermore, a fast charging point shall be provided adjacent to at least one parking space for each new dwelling, as part of a larger condition designed for parking matters.
Thank you, Chairman. That's escaped my notice, and that's a very good condition, and one I'd love to see on every other application. Thank you very much, sir.
Fair point. Right, if you'll excuse me, ladies, I have got Councillor Morley and he hasn't had a first go, so I'm going to hold you back and let him go. Councillor Morley, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just an inquiry really about the presence of sulphate in the water. Can someone explain to me how that's been remedied and actually what is it, please? Thank you.
Who's doing that? Mr. Taylor, go ahead, please.
So could you ask the question again? You were referring to sulphate. Is this in terms of contamination or
that's
impact
right,
on?
yeah, page 43. I'm just interested to know what it does and how it was remedied, really. It says the presence of water-soluble sulphate, which can significantly attack buried concrete. The remedied strategy should be identified and approved.
Chairman,
Oh, sorry, can we have some microphones on so Mr Lee
I'm
can...
just interested to know what it does. If it's not there, it's in there. I'd just like to know what it does.
to be honest, I can't be comment because the rest of the sentence you haven't highlighted is actually, it highlights actually a building control issue.
Right.
So, it's something that building control will have to deal with as part of the development. If it falls under their legislation, it's not
Okay, I was just interested.
But so,
Okay.
I'm going to be honest and say I don't really know. Thank you.
Okay.
Right, so we're back to Councillor White, please. Oh, Councillor Fleming then. I don't mind, ladies. Hand back to
Thank
the
you, Chair. I think my concern with this, well, the presumption that the marketing has been done for a large commercial unit of 10,000 square foot and then nobody's taken it, so that there isn't any commercial demand. I actually don't think that that's the case. I think the problem is that it was marketed as one unit. I think that had it been designed, a smaller design of several units of, up to 1,000 square foot, I think there would have been demand there. The problem is that, they've been trying to sell a site that is, half the size of a supermarket in a village location. So I would have liked to have seen the developers come back with a smaller amount of commercial space, divided into smaller units with things like dentists, veterinary surgeon, small shop, things that a village needs. So I have to say, slightly disappointed by this. Thank you.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just reading through, and under 5.2.3, it says that there were no community uses, but if they didn't, that were required, if they didn't consult with the community, how can they possibly know whether it would have been taken up or not by the community? So that's an issue. And likewise, as my fellow ward member said, with the units, it did say here somewhere, and I can't find it now, that they had inquiries that were interested, but they didn't really hear from them again. And I don't know, perhaps that somebody can inform me. I would imagine they showed interest before COVID, and obviously it's all died a death. And it doesn't say that these were followed up, and I do think this is premature. And I think, if anything, this should be deferred. I'd like to propose that we at least defer it until a proper public consultation has been taken out with the local residents. After all, it was granted on, the big application was granted on the premise that there would be a commercial area, providing, and it was very excited about getting a shop, or shops plural. And, I think it's not practical to use the trainers, the other ward members have said, to go to Wickham Ferrers to get a pint of milk or something. And I'd like to see North Fambridge become a prosperous rural village. I think that's part of it. Maybe some of the residents would prefer to have housing, but I think we have a duty to try and improve these areas. And I don't think a sufficient public consultation has been carried out. It's not just about commercial consultations. We have to think of our residents. So I'm mindful to put forward a proposal that we defer it or refuse it pending a proper public consultation where the residents are consulted about what they want and what they need. Because it was granted in the first application. It was part of the application that we allowed it.
I'm not entirely sure if a deferral would be the right. I understand what you're saying, but I suspect it would be a refusal on those grounds. I'm looking at Mr Lee
Through
here.
you, Chairman, my advice would be defer would be difficult because if you deferred it and you consulted and they came back with saying they wanted lots of different things, you wouldn't really be able to do anything with that information and defer as part of the termination of the application. If you were trying to say that that is part of a flawed commercial, commercial approach to looking into the viability of the commercial enterprise in the long term, that's a different matter, but just deferring to do that, you'd end up with information that what then would you do when you want to brought it back to committee? It wouldn't, be much help, thank you.
Thank you. Or perhaps I could amend that to propose a refusal because we don't believe that a public consultation has been carried out as this was part of the original application. And we'd like a non-COVID and smaller unit consultation and a public consultation to the residents who live there. I don't know if I'll get any supporters for
Well,
that.
let's see, is there a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, well, councillor Fleming got in first. I mean, I suspect there's a bit more chicken and egg here as well, in that if the houses were there, people might know what they wanted.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? Councillor Durham, did you want to come up?
Yeah, and I have total sympathy for the ward members, but I think we're going about this the wrong way, because as I said earlier, if you have a public consultation and you say to the people that live there, what would you like? Of course they'd like a shop, and they'd like a dentist, and they'd like a doctor's, and they'd like a vet's, and they like, hairdressers, and, just about everything else, but as I said, they won't be viable. I think that the way to look at it, and Councillor Fleming was perhaps correct in saying it hasn't been marketed commercially for smaller units, and that is more to the point of seeing whether smaller units are economically viable, and you would assess that by the fact that whether there would be any takers for them. So I would be happier to see that route rather than go to the residents and say, what would you like? Because you'll have a great long shopping list, none of which will be viable, and we'll have a row of empty buildings. But so I have sympathy with them, but I think we have to be realistic on this.
Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to back up what Councillor Durham has said. So, in terms of the situation, village shops are really nice, but they're not sustainable, and we've got to look at how we use the site and utilise the site. The previous application did not put forward 10 units, it put forward 1 unit. That 1 unit is not viable, so therefore we have to look at what's on the table now. And I think we're sort of losing sight of the application that's in front of us.
Councillor White. You're absolutely entitled to stick with your proposal if you
Yeah, I
like.
would like to put forward a proposal. This application is refused as I don't think it was effectively marketed due to COVID-19. It's caused issues. I don't think that the exploration by the developers to actually construct buildings has been explored. I also think it's against all the relevant NPPF policies on thriving communities, sustainability, rural employment, which are all important. And they're the reasons I give for refusing the application. Every other one's refused on sustainability. If there's no shop, and there is not a single shop or business effectively in that area.
Thank you. Councillor Fleming, are you still all right seconding that? I don't think it's changed substantially, but I just want to check.
Yes, thank you,
You're still
Chair.
seconding
Again, I'm not convinced by the argument that there's no demand for commercial uses, because I think that they have marketed it, but they've marketed a huge site in the middle of nowhere. Had they marketed it as several small units, I'm sure that there would have been demand there for some sort of service, whether it was dentists, vets, doctors, hairdresser, beautician, whatever. People would have come forward definitely if you had small units of 500-600 square feet. It's the fact that they have marketed one large lump of a building that is half the size of a supermarket. There were never going to be any takers for that, but I feel that there would be takers for smaller units, several of them. And so I'd be happier if the developers had a rethink and came back with something like that.
Okay,
Thank you.
right.
Yeah,
Let's
if
put that-
I might come back supplementary, it wouldn't be a problem if it was a mix of residential and commercial, but I think to throw the commercial out with the bathwater and just say, no, it's not viable, I think it is bizarre, because the unit at Hollington's, they've got small units and they are always full, they're never empty for very long, they get rented out very quickly, there's lots of diverse businesses there in Stone areas.
Okay, right, Mr. Lee.
Through you, Chairman, just for clarity, the outline application was for 1,000 square metres of flexible commercial and community space. It wouldn't necessarily have had to have been in one building. It could have been in a larger subsections. But I think that goes back to the point that this application's only been at outline stage. If you were looking. Personally, if I was looking to start hairdressers, which wasn't something skill, but if I was, I wouldn't be looking to do it in a premises that doesn't physically exist at the time, or even have reserve
Yeah,
matters for
exactly,
it. So
yeah.
that is part, I think that's part of the issue that Councillor Fleming's sort of been talking about, but hasn't maybe quite clarified.
Yes, that's
You know,
exactly
I think that's part of what she's trying to
I know what
get
you
at, the clarity for assessment, if that's what
Mm.
the point is. That although it can be subdivided, it has been just dealt with as a large outline application with certain floor area rather than reserved matters or subdivision, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, okay, members, we've got a proposal on the table. It's duly seconded. I think it's been clear enough, certainly for me. So could we have a vote, please? Are we all right? Showing hands. Can we have those in favour, please? Can you make it really, really clear? Right, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's 3 in favour of the proposal, which is to refuse. Those against the proposal to refuse. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, well, I'll send it back to that one. So, for completeness, we actually have to put the recommendation, because you can't just not refuse, not agree. So I'm going to put the officer's recommendation. Is there a seconder from the floor for that, please? Councillor Durham, thank you very much. So, those in favour of the officer's recommendation to approve, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those against? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that application is in fact approved according to the officer's recommendation and report. Thank you. Right, Mr. Webber, you're about to be started. Sorry? No, I was saying that I can't do. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I appreciate you can't see that. Okay, moving on, we're now looking at land north of Orchard Way, Mope Lane, Wickham Bishops. The presenting officer is Miss Tassoglu.
Yes, that's right.
Have I got that right? Anywhere near right, thank you. We do have 2 public speakers. Are we going to bring them in so they see the presentation, or are they going to watch the presentation and then come in?
They're watching the presentation in the northern room and then I'm bringing them in.
That's fine. Okay, when you're ready, please.
Yeah. How did we go? Right. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Morris. I'm just got my big wooden spoon and they won't get it.
Can I carry on?
Oh, yes, sorry. I thought I said, obviously I didn't say it loud enough, but
Okay.
please do.
So the application site is located to the eastern side of Mope Lane. And does not fall within any defined settlement boundary. The site is currently an open land used for grazing of horses, and graphically the area slopes to the west, as you can see on this plan. Planning permission is sought for the erection of a 5-bedroom dwelling. As shown on the site plan, the building will be split into 2 buildings, this one and this one, which will be connected with the glazed link here. The proposal includes the replanting of an orchard and the introduction of an open meadow and a wildlife pond. The elevations show that the development would utilise the change in ground levels, as you can see on this one. So whilst the proposed dwelling is to be 2-storey, when viewed from Mope Lane, this would appear as single-storey. This is the Mope Lane view. So these are the rest of the elevations and the floor plan, the ground floor plan, and actually it's the upper floor plan and the lower ground floor plan. And these are some of the photographs of the site, the views towards the north and the south and towards the existing access to the site, and also some views from within the site towards its boundary. So the proposed development has been assessed against the development plan and all relevant material planning considerations, taking into account the council's previous decision within the vicinity of the site. I'm talking about the north of Fernwood Hall. And in this instance, it is considered that the principle of the provision of one dwelling in this location is acceptable. it is considered that whilst the proposed development is not located within a defined settlement boundary, it is in a location that the council has previously found development acceptable. Furthermore, prior appropriate weight should be given to the scheme in relation to the biodiversity features and landscaping proposed, which are considered to weigh obviously in favour of the proposed development in environmental terms. No objection is raised in relation to the impact of the development on the design, residential amenity or parking, and for that reason officers recommend approval of the application subject to conditions stated on pages 69 to 72 of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we do have these two public speakers and we're just waiting for them to arrive, so if we could just get the clock up. Stu, can they listen to each other and both say to the end of this item? Thank you. Yes, we have Mr. Wardrop, who's the parish council representative first, and then Ms. Bardell in short. Okay, Mr. Wardrop, you have 2 minutes precisely from when you begin to speak. Please make yourself comfortable, use the microphone, and I'm afraid I will stop you even if it's mid-sentence. 2 minutes, talking.
Been here before.
There you go.
Thank you. The parish council remains of the view that this application should be refused. Significant weight has been given to the fact that the committee approved an application for FULM Hall near this site. The committee will recall that their approval was contrary to the very strong advice given to them by their officers. The parish council accepts that the committee is entitled to reject officers' advice, but that decision was taken on the basis of the specific aspects of that case. Officers should be consistent. If officers recommended strongly that FULM should not be approved, they should not be recommending approval of this one. Their reasoning should not have changed by a decision by councillors in a specific instance. Applications at Little Hill Farm and the Old Rectory, both nearer the centre of the village, were refused by the committee, albeit the former was approved on appeal. Both refusals were partly on grounds of sustainability, and in the case of the former, the appeal inspector acknowledged that his decision was contrary to policy S8 of the LDP. Other developments in the lane were on brownfield sites or where there were existing buildings to be replaced. In the FULM case, councillors noted that the proposed development replaced an existing building. This does not apply in this case. This application is for development of an open field which has had no building structures on it. There are views from the lane across to higher points in the village. Developing it will detract from the character of the area. Para 518 of the officer's report quotes Para 78 of the NPPF, that planning policies should identify opportunities for villages to grow and thrive. On one house in this location will not do that. The site is outside the development boundary and is not in a sustainable location. We believe it is contrary to the two policies of the recently made neighbourhood plan, and we believe that this application should be refused.
Thank you. Right, if we could swap our public speakers, please. Okay, reset the clock. And this is Miss Karen Bardell, who is the agent. Speaking of the agent. Again, Miss Bardell, I know you know the rules, but please make yourself comfortable. Please use the microphone, and it's 2 minutes from when you begin to speak. Thank you.
My name is Karen Bardell and I am the architect of the local practice of plated claymore for this application. The application is for a new house created within a significantly enhanced biodiverse habitat. The approach is aimed at giving an opportunity to reinstate a lost orchard in the village. The proposed development seeks to provide a home in a substantially improved habitat. The primary concern was to design a house that can contribute positively to the local character by demonstrating an understanding of the special landscape setting, character, materials, colours and palettes of the village, while still respecting the rural setting of Mope Lane itself. The design principles are based on sensitive site analysis combined with sustainable aspirations of the applicants, resulting in development that sits sympathetically within the landscape. Detailed explanations are given and illustrated in the supporting application documents. The application has attracted considerable local support. The inclusion of a scientifically measured biodiversity net gain calculation on the proposals before you demonstrates a net gain of 88% in habitat species and 19.25% gain in hedgerow units, which can be achieved. This specific design proposal provides a way for Mope District Council to demonstrate an integrated approach to new development without detriment to the character and appearance of the area. We would be pleased if you would support this application in line with your officer's recommendation.
Thank you, members. Just before we do get started, members, I just want to say that the officers aren't changing their minds, but they are, and I'll say it so none of the officers have to, the officers are obliged to take previous decisions into account because they are material planning considerations, and therefore, just because they're recommended to refuse the first one doesn't mean that they're going to recommend to refuse the second one because of the decision made in the meantime. Okay, are there any, I'll just ask if there are any questions of fact, like how high is it, how far is it from here, otherwise we'll go straight into the debate. So who'd like to go first? Okay.
Agree recommendation?
Agree with recommendations.
Second that.
Okay, right, well, for completeness I'm going to put it, even though I think I know which way this is going, I'm going to put the officer's recommendation to approve. Can I have a second there?
Seconded.
Yes, practically everybody, Councillor Morley.
Chairman, I'd like to comment if that's all right.
Oh, yes, of course, Councillor Durham.
Thank you, thank you. It is in my ward, as you're aware. This is a difficult situation and I totally accept what the parish council have said. However, a couple of their points in that, whereas this application doesn't meet the recognised housing need, well, I think we have to put it into context of where this application is. It's on Mope Lane and it's predominantly extremely large dwellings. I think it's probably one of the wealthiest roads in the country. So perhaps anything, you could argue that anything other than a similar dwelling would look somewhat incongruous. You certainly wouldn't want a row of two-bedroom houses on that. And I think taking on board what the speaker from the parish council said, actually circumstances, as we all know, are slightly different now to when the decision was taken in respect of Fernbrook Hall in relation to 5-year land supply, etc., etc. You should know that I actually voted against Fernbrook Hall, but I think on this occasion there are significant other grounds to actually approve this application. It is with a heavy heart because I don't like ignoring what the parish council has said, and it's very concerning that it contravenes their neighbourhood plan, which was very hard fought and went to referendum on the same day as the recent elections. But I think, you know, a sustainable location, well, you know, it's similar to all of the other houses in that area, and as we've said, whether you like the Fernbrook Hall decision, that is a material consideration, and I think that we would be in a very difficult place if we turn this down on the back of that decision that some members made for Fernbrook Hall. I've said my piece, thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Civil. A bit quick to recommend.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to check in terms of the conditions. Is the orchard and all the habitat and things like that, is that part of the conditions? And does if the orchard dies in 5 years' time, what is the situation in terms of that? So, is that something that we condition? Is that something that we can put a TPO on it immediately to ensure that those trees are kept in perpetuity, if I can say it forever?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. There is definitely a condition. If you give me 1 second, I will give you the number. Yeah, so it's conditions 11, which talks about mitigation and enhancement measures in accordance with the ecological appraisal that was submitted, and condition 12, which relates to the biodiversity enhancement strategy, and also there is a condition about the protection of the existing trees along the western boundary, which is condition 15.
Okay, so with the new trees, can we TPO them?
That might be a question for Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee?
No trees at the moment.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, normally, Mr. Lee, these landscape things fall away after 5 years, don't they? If it continues to fail for 5 years, is that normally the point at which you give up, or can you do anything about that?
In relation to landscaping, yeah, it does have a 5 years word of protection. The important point is with this is that although we're not explicitly talking about the trees, we are talking about the biodiversity and the ecology benefits, and they actually go hand in hand. So indirectly, we've actually probably protected it more than we would have done with this direct condition. Thanks, Sharon.
Okay, that sounds good.
It's fine.
Right, well, we do have the proposal to agree the officer's recommendation on the table. Could I have a show of hands for those in favour, please? Right, I'm abstaining, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, that ought to mean nobody against, am I right? Those against? Nobody against. Okay, thank you everyone. That application is agreed and approved in line with the officer's report and recommendation. Thank you. Right, so I'm going to ask Ms Fardell and Mr Wardrop please to shuffle out that way while we get ready for item 7, which is barns adjacent to Mosklyns farm, which is Purleigh. There was a member's update circulated prior to the meetings. Everyone found that, got that, read it? Thank you. The presenting officer is Ms Tassaglu, practising, thank you again. Public speaking, we have someone speaking for the applicant, so we can have the presentation and then Miss or Mrs Strathern, please, but presentation first, thank you.
Through you, Chairman. So the application site is located outside any development boundary in a rural setting to the northwest of the village of Purleigh. Mosklyns farm is located on the southwest side of Chelmsford Road, and the barn itself relates to a 2-storey timber boarded barn previously used for agricultural purposes. The application is partially retrospective and seeks to regularise the existing works carried out to the barn and gain permission to the conversion of the building to a dwelling house, and some other external changes have not yet been carried out. The following plans show the existing and plans and elevations, and the proposed plans and elevations. This is the roof plan, which is the same for the existing and proposed. This is the street scene, this is the building, this is the barn to be converted. This is a cycle set, which is proposed to be located within the rear garden, over there. And this is the landscaping plan and some pictures. This is the building. It is noted that a similar application for a partially retrospective application to convert the barn to a dwelling house was refused on 4th of May 2021 due to the impact of the development on the character of the area, its poor sustainability credentials, as well as the absence of a signed legal agreement to secure necessary funding for RAMS. The conversion of the barn to a dwelling house was also previously found unacceptable by the North Western Planning Committee under the terms of application 20/00310/FUL. The application seeks to regularise part of the originally implemented prior approval scheme which has not been completed within the time period or in accordance with the approved plans. As such, the prior approval is no longer extant, the development is now unauthorised and does not benefit from a fallback position. It should be noted that the criteria for the determination of a prior approval application is under permitted development legislation, and as a result the development was not assessed against the local plan policies or other material planning considerations. Under this application, it is considered that the development fails to comply with the development plan and the NPPF. Specifically, the development is considered unacceptable due to its poor sustainability credentials and unacceptable appearance, which represents harm to the countryside. Also, the development, due to the absence of a signed legal agreement to secure necessary financial contribution towards ramps, will potentially have an impact to nature conservation sites. Consideration has been given to the planning history of the site and the approval of the adjoining site, which was not considered to outweigh the conflict with the development plan. For that reason, officers recommend refusal of this application for the reasons stated on page 95 of the agenda.
Thank you very much. Miss or Mrs. Miss. Okay. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please use your microphone. We're just going to get the clock up. The clock will start as you begin to speak. You've got precisely 2 minutes, and I'm afraid I will stop you in the middle of the sentence if it happens. Yes, press that.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. We seek planning permission to convert the second half of an existing barn into a dwelling. In January and February 2021, this committee approved the first half of the barn into a single dwelling, approved on the basis that issues regarding amenity space have been addressed and that the council lacked a 5-year housing land supply. Our application is for a dwelling within a sustainable location nearby to 5 successful appeals between 2016 and 2019 for residential development along Chelmsford Road, Purleigh. The sustainability of the site was acknowledged by this committee, resulting in approval of our attached neighbouring barn. The development of the second half of the barn will not cause harm to the local landscape character, with many local residents confirming their support. We intend to restore the barn in a sympathetic way, consistent with the work undertaken to the first half of the barn. All of Purleigh's local amenities are accessible on foot via the private all-weather footpath, which the council accepted in May this year. There is also the D1 and D2 bus route. Heading and bus company have confirmed they service this toll, which is only 427 metres from the site. Our application now meets all of the council's requirements for parking spaces, garden sizes, and the provision of cycle storage. We have now paid the additional sum of £1.72 towards the Essex Ramps mitigation, the fee having increased during the course of our earlier application. The development improves the appearance of a formerly derelict building, forming a positive addition to Purleigh Village that enhances the area's appearance and character. We respectfully ask for the committee's support. Thank you for listening.
And actually answers one of my questions, which was how we sorted the rams out, so that's one good thing. Are there any questions of fact, how big, how far? Okay.
Debate than questions.
Right, let's go straight to the debate. I saw Councillor White first, then Councillor Fleming, then Councillor Morley.
I have a question actually.
Oh, right, sorry, Councillor Fleming.
Thank you for the report. I wanted to ask about in 5.1.9, there's talk of walking and buses. I just was curious as to whether the use of the bicycle hadn't been considered. Thank you.
The road, the Chelmsford Road is the only road that the property has access to. So this is the only way that someone having a bicycle can bike along. So it does, as I said, it does not benefit from a footpath or anything. I mean, cyclists do go through roads, and they can also utilise the proposed and formalised footpath. But again, this is.
Thank you. The point I was making, Chair, is that all the amenities of the village are accessible by bike. Thank you.
Okay, right, Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was at the planning commission when we refused the first part of the planning commission because the permitted development had gone over time. But the gardens didn't meet the design standards, there were lots of issues, and since then they put in the footpath, they've made the gardens bigger. These barns were already half converted anyway, so for me there's going to be no change to the rural area because they're already there and they're already half converted. And we approved the other half at North West Planning the other month, so I think it's ridiculous to refuse this half. And I think that I would like to put a proposal forward that we approve this half of the application. It is sustainable. Every appeal for residential has been won at Purleigh for residential, and the planning inspector has always come up with the fact that he believes it's sustainable. So if the opinions think it's sustainable, I think it's sustainable. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Right, well, if that's, I've still got a couple of people to speak, but okay, then seconded by Councillor Keys. Mr. Lee.
Chair, what I want to highlight that putting forward the argument that it's half, there is some planning commissions, but putting forward the argument it's half converted is a reason to put the planning commission would be a very dangerous statement within a reason for approval, because what you're saying is just because a breach of planning commission has occurred, you should be able to finish it. So I'm just very conscious of that statement being part of any reason for approval going forward. Thank you.
So, sorry, I'll get to it, but we need to make sure we're talking about the right proposal. So would you care to tighten up your reasons, given that that really isn't a material planning consideration?
I would like to propose that we approve this application because the site has been found to be sustainable at appeal, or the village in that area has been found to be sustainable at appeal, and we approved the original refusal was overcome by the provision of a footpath and extra car parking spaces. And we recently at North West Planning approved the other half of the barn, and at that time we found it sustainable and we found there was no harm to the rural scene. So for that reason I find it sustainable and it should be approved and meets with the NPP.
Okay, Councillor Keys is still, well, Councillor Keys goes in first.
Yeah.
Right now I've actually got three more people to speak, with Councillor Fleming, if you want to say, Councillor Morley and Councillor Keys.
Councillor White has me.
Oh, thank you, sorry.
Councillor White has included what I was saying, so that's fine.
That's fine, right. I'll pass on from Councillor Morley. Councillor Fleming, did you have any more to say? No. Okay. Councillor Paul, Councillor Durham, I've done it again, so I'm going to go to him.
Me.
To you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I actually don't have any problem with this per se. What I do have a problem with is the fact that it's retrospective, and I think, if members do decide to agree this, it is definitely not for the reason that half of it is there and has been done effectively illegally. I honestly, as I said, under normal circumstances, retrospective puts up a red flag for me, because it's far too easy for people to build things without permission and then come to us and say, well, it's half there. But as I said, per se, I actually don't have a significant issue with this, except the fact that it's retrospective.
I'll get to you, Councillor. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. The fact that it's partly there and it's retrospective is, does Brian?
If anything, that's a negative for me.
That tends to be a negative, I suspect, for most of us. Right, now I've got Councillor Keys followed by Councillor Sybil. Anybody else? Right, Councillor Keys.
Thank you, Sharon. It's just, I can't find it in here, but I had it come up with one of in my ward. What are the building times on this? Because being a farmer, partly farmer I suppose, I know they're doing it themselves, and this is not Bellway homes or permission homes, if he gets up in the morning, as we all know, the weather's not particularly well judged on phones and bits and pieces. Could we alter the time restrictions on it? I can't see what they are now, but the only person next door is someone that owns part of it, which is part of the family, so he's not going to be out there nailing on tiles at 2 in the morning. But I just don't want it. It came up in one of my wards where he said he's building it himself, and he's got the same restrictions as down the road as Mizzen Homes. Well, I can't see it on here, but
I'm pretty
The
sure
applications for refusals, there are no conditions.
there are no conditions applied.
And
So
to be checked,
we
we
will-
don't normally impose conditions on opening hours, on construction hours on.
You meant construction hours as opposed to 3 years?
yeah, construction hours is what I'm talking of, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I didn't add to
I can add that.
Councillor White, well, Councillor White's proposed, can we delegate, assuming which I'm not actually, that your
Yeah.
proposal is agreed, can we delegate
Yeah,
the
I'm
conditions to the
happy
office?
to delegate conditions, but I would appreciate that it is a site that's family owned, that we don't have the normal working hours, 9 to 4 or whatever they are.
Mr Lee?
Two things, firstly, generally I would like to see, just because the neighbours could be family, we shouldn't take that into account, in fact that our plan should be granted the site to be sold either or. Secondly, as I just said, on an application such as this, we wouldn't normally impose restriction on hours on construction, because it's going to be dwelling and that would be dealt with in part of legislation anyway. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Okay.
Councillor Siddle.
Councillor Siddle, yes.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand your concerns about retrospective, can't talk tonight, retrospective, planning permission. However, this building is in existence, and that's a crucial element about it. It's an existing barn, so it's not as if the barn has magically appeared, it was there already, so we are sort of normalising the situation as far as I'm in terms of my opinion. So yes, if it was a brand new building and that had sprung up or built behind straw bales, then maybe it would be a slightly different situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fleming?
I just wanted to clarify about this. The work was started under a Cooper application, is my understanding.
Yeah, PT.
And it wasn't just that they just suddenly decided to start work.
I understand.
Yeah.
I
Thank
understand. Yes, no one was trying to do anything underhand, it was started, it ran out of time, etc., etc. Sorry, I'm sure no one's accusing anyone of anything. Okay, can we... I'm very sorry, Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I might be misunderstanding something here, and it has already been stated that we've provided permission for the first half. I just don't understand, and that perhaps Mr. Lee can help me here, why we would say no. I'm just not getting it at all. Why say no this time round?
I hear what you're saying, but the one next door doesn't necessarily follow, but Mr. Lee.
Through you, Chairman, the council has refused, the council committee refused this revitalisation, this dwelling previously, last year. So there's decision based on support again, and as always, on planning judgment and balancing exercise, giving various weights to the different competing pros and cons. The planning office has considered that the merit or the planning weight given to the council decision on this exact building is more significant weight into the adjoining building. But as I said, it comes down to the planning weight and your personal judgment. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that. Can we put this proposal to the vote, which is in fact to approve with conditions delegated to the officers and on the ground, basically of sustainability, but did you get that? Okay, thank you. Councillor Swan.
No, I'm good.
You're good, okay.
I'll get ready to vote.
I saw the digit, okay. So, those in favour of the proposal to approve under, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm abstaining. Did I miss something there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, yes, well anyway, that is approved in line with the proposal made by Councillor White. You'll be pleased to hear that item 6, any other items of business that the Chairman decides are urgent, there are none. So item 7, close the meeting, members and officers thank everyone for their contribution this evening. Meeting to a close at 8:45. So, here we go. And please leave nice and separately by this door. Good night.